It's the NUKA-COLA Lounge, presented by the Triple S League.
NUKA-COLA was a popular drink in the pre-war era, and still is today.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Triple S Podcast for December 14th, 2016. My name is Ashenity, and I'm here with Cybsidian.
Hello! How is everybody doing today in this cold, cold world?
Well, they can't answer you. Well, no, that's not true. They can. They can write comments.
Yes, please comment, because apparently comments and likes are, the only way to get videos going now. I am, of course, mocking the YouTube problems right now. I'm not gonna go into it, but guys, if we can get like 1,000 likes, or 1,000,000 likes, or quite possibly 1 billion likes on this video, that'd be so crazy.
Cyb will release nudes.
No, I won't. I will never release nudes.
Okay, unless we get 1 million likes on this video, Cyb will release nudes. Okay, so, you know how last week we were talking about, we started off, I don't know how we got on the topic of, like, paranormal videos and stuff like that, but this week I was sitting down here in my office, which is in the basement, and I look up just as the door to my washing machine is closing by itself.
Oh, well.
And
clearly, clearly you have a poltergeist situation.
Clearly. No, I had just been thinking about these kinds of videos, and we had that conversation, and I look, and the door to my washing machine just closes, and like with enough force to actually latch shut. I almost crapped myself, because it was just on my brain, and I was like, what is happening? Now, of course, it's just the angle the thing is sitting at, I figured out. Unless it's all the way open, gravity will eventually just pull it shut. But
that's what the ghosts want you to think.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I was watching I gotta give this guy a shout out. Is Beyond Science. He's great. He's got some videos on moon mysteries that just came out, and that was very enjoyable. And you know what the other thing is really enjoyable is the Foundry videos, the videos where they work with like molten steel. For some reason, like, I could just watch those for hours. They're just so like just watching molten steel be bent and shaped and molded is actually quite enjoyable. So who knew the things that the fun things that you discover on YouTube here. So yeah, no, I love YouTube. I really just hope they fix these problems, because it's a lot of creators who are experiencing them, and we don't want to go into it because, like, we know that there's a problem that exists. We don't know why it exists, and whatever that may be. So if you are listening to us, and if you do find our content enjoyable, please do subscribe, and unfortunately you do hit that little bell thingy. I hate telling people to subscribe twice, but apparently that's what we got to do now. So
So what's happened in the news this week?
Well, not a whole lot. This is kind of like the calm before the storm that you get around the Christmas and the end of the season. There's going to be a storm of news and stuff as things are released and the holidays hit, and games and consoles and everything comes out, and then of course the associated problems that will happen with all of those releases. But once the releases are done and we get a good idea of the of kind of the direction of everything that's come out, then it gets really quiet in January, and we do a lot of reflection on the news. But right now there wasn't a whole lot. There was some really good info that came out about the new Nintendo console, and the fact that they found a lot of these hidden features. Some of these people kind of mined the technology to see what they could find, and apparently there's some cool stuff on the way.
I know what I read said that they're toying with the idea of porting GameCube titles to their Virtual Console feature, and that would be really nice. I have great memories of playing GameCube games with my brother. Some good old Super Smash Brothers Melee. We would spend hours beating the crap out of each other in that.
I think there's I think one of the things that for some reason the consoles and the game companies are not doing is I don't think they realize how much money can be made off of the old titles by just like improving, their graphics, some of their camera controls, and then just porting these things to the new consoles. I hate buying like individual games that I bought 3 or 4 times in the past, but unlocking here's 50 of them for $20 or $30. Here's a whole here's all of 2001, 2002, 2003. And I don't know why nobody's already done it, because it kind of seems to just make sense. But they're moving in the right direction. That's a good thing.
Well, Nintendo has been in that market for quite a while. They've had the Virtual Console since the original Wii console, where you could go and purchase NES games, Super NES games, and Nintendo 64 games, as well as a few other more obscure consoles. And you could get all the classic Mario games. The issue that I always had with it was I always felt that the titles were overpriced. I had no problem spending $12 on Ocarina of Time and some of the other Zelda titles, etc. At one point I had 5 or 6 Zelda titles on Virtual Console. But paying $10 for an NES game,
yeah,
it's a little pricey.
It's also really greedy, because a lot of those titles made a lot of money back in the day, and now they're like, hey, we could just charge basically 40% of what we were charging then. We can charge it again, and so that's kind of problematic and might lead to kind of a feeling that they're trying to squeeze a lot of blood from the stone, as it were. So I'm not overly positive how well that'll go over, but what I would suggest is to just with the especially with the old titles, is just be liberal with them. Give them away in giveaways and big gift packs and big sale items, because the more people that play your content, the more people that will kind of stay with your content, and that's why free to play has been such a successful model in the past couple of years, and how and why it's kind of shaping and forming things. Mm-hmm. I hate pay to win, but a lot of free to play mechanics are pretty decent and could definitely be used in some of these scenarios. So
Oh, absolutely. And I like that idea of get a pack, charge $20 or $30 for a pack of games. I guess they did that with the mini classic, the NES classic.
Yeah, there were some you couldn't get on there, and there's a lot of people who were kind of disappointed with some of the selection. But at the same time, it is fun, and it is good, and it's good to see that kind of the old be new again. And we've really been in that now, with Star Wars, and 2016 has just been the year of old things being new again. But I guess that old saying, no, there is no new news, so it's just old news happening to new people. Yeah, I think that was.
We're in the era of nostalgia. It seems like everything old is new again. Yeah, we're getting new Star Wars movies. We are getting.
As long as we don't get bell-bottom pants, I'll be okay. It's just can't do that again. Can't do that again. No, thank you. But yeah.
Smosh yesterday, they did an honest game trailer for Knights of the Old Republic, and I was like,
I did not see that one. I gotta watch that right now.
I was like, wow, back in the day, and then I was like, wow, those graphics were terrible. How did we ever think this was?
I remember playing that game when it first came out. I was like, when it would do the widescreen. You remember my gigantic old television?
Yeah.
When it did those widescreen shots, it was just like, I was like, wow, this is so amazing. How can, this is so amazing. I can't imagine, like, where it's going to be in like 5-10 years from now. And actually, I'm a little disappointed at where we currently are versus where we could be, but whatever.
Well, you could, somebody commented on our Andromeda analysis video that the graphics don't live up to a AAA 2016 or 2017 title, and I kind of agree. When you look at, Andromeda's been in development for how long?
Yeah,
I don't even know, but when you look at
there is something I should point out with that, and that's that, and this is the same argument that we hear a lot about like Skyrim and Fallout, is like, oh, the graphics aren't up to where they should be. But when you're comparing it to like a God of War, or when you're comparing it to, some of these other titles, you gotta understand that there's very little that you can actually like impact in those types of worlds. So in those types of worlds, you see a shop filled with kind of like some talking heads and a whole bunch of things on the counter. You can't go in there, pick everything up and throw it on the floor, or stack it into a giant pile and throw a dog through it. You can't do those kinds of things with those kinds of technologies. And I think what you see is that some people are like, oh no, graphics are everything. But if you make graphics be everything, then you just kind of, you get the same like, you get the same like 5 games. And those are the same kind of like 5 games that are always released on like the first generation of the title, or of the new consoles. So
you're kind of talking about a trade-off between graphics quality, yes, and game, like how much you can do in the game. Because every item that exists in the game, it's not just rendered graphically, but if it's a movable item, the game has to keep track of where it is and what angle it's at, and it has to keep track
That's where resources get eaten up in games like that. And we're going to see a lot of, I have it on pretty good authority that we're going to see some building mechanics in Andromeda, and that's why I think the graphics are not as high as they were expecting it to be. But that's because I honestly think that we're going to have a lot of, like, the worlds are going to be so much bigger. And there's a point where you have to decide, well, are we going to have a game that's got this humongous area of play, very few to little to, almost no loading screens, and you can pick up things, you can walk into dozens and dozens and dozens of buildings and talk to random NPCs about, cool things, or hear, cool conversations. That's one of the best things about Mass Effect in the past, was all the conversations, the ongoing conversations that you'd hear from game to game to game. It was hilarious. There's one story where a guy spent all 3 games, like all these years within the game world, trying to get a refund on something. It was hilarious. But anyways, you can't have a lot of those features when you move to a, pumping out the best graphics. When you try and do that, you get something where it's like the only thing to do is combat, and even then it's like you're fighting a very small list of enemies. You don't really have a lot of like conjunction. But the other thing to remember too is that these types of games typically outlast so many other types of games. Like when you look at
Skyrim.
Skyrim is a great example.
Yeah.
Skyrim can be upgraded. Skyrim can be tweaked. Skyrim can be modded to look better and better and better and better. And like one of the biggest mods right now is an improved mesh mod that improves the meshes, that improves the existence of objects within the world. That's just like, that's a huge step in improving that kind of experience. But you only get to do that by spending tons and tons of man hours that just would be, it would be crazy to the dev teams to input that much effort. So
the game would cost a heck of a lot more.
Yeah,
it would have taken so much more time to produce.
Like we see what Caliente does with the human models, and we've talked about this a lot before. We got a video on it. Caliente is an amazing modder when it comes to rebuilding the female body and giving access and tools in order to tweak your character that just simply do not exist in any other game. What they're working on right now is amazing for the new Skyrim SE. The new body mod that they've got coming out is amazing. It looks amazing. I've been keeping my eye on it, and it's just been the progress on it is going to be much better than the progress was on it when it was in vanilla, in the basic Skyrim, and then also comparatively when you look at Fallout 4, it's going to be even better than that one by a significant amount. So these are the things that developers don't always have the resources to spend on it, and if the company's being run by a big corporation, then some of those questions are asked. It's like, what are you talking about? You want to spend have 4 developers work on one thing for 5 months? That's a waste of time. Just get it so that it's good enough to be launched, and that's what we don't want to see. We don't want to encourage this one concept of make it good enough so that it can launch. We want to encourage developers to make it the best.
But then you get into endless update hell, and
yes.
You buy a game that you're expecting is going to be a full game. I'm thinking
and
whole conversation. I've been thinking of The Division.
Yeah.
Like this entire conversation. The graphics were amazing in that game.
Yeah,
but
super awesome graphics. It couldn't really do much in the world, and that's a great example where they made something look amazing. They made something look really, really cool. And yes, you could shoot up cars, but
that's a pretty simple mechanic. That's not necessarily something that's going to have draw on the physics engine.
Yeah.
And yet
you can't shoot up other objects in that game, and so you end up running into this kind of like wall where it's like, it's really pretty to look at for about 30 to 40 hours, but once I kind of hit that, then I'm kind of done. Like if there's nothing new, if it's not super immersive, if I run through the same area 3 or 4 times and I'm not seeing new things that I haven't seen or interesting things that I haven't seen before, then is the game really worth playing at that point?
Or you're even seeing the same NPC model over and over again.
Yeah.
Like wearing the same thing, and you'd think in 2015, 2016.
But hey, you know what's great about that game is that you can go into the disease zone where the disease is like really, crazy. You can loot a scarf or some food objects. Then you can take that out of the zone and give that diseased food to somebody else who's dying or would have died to the disease if you hadn't, given them some food or water. And then they'll give you something to wear, like an undershirt. It's just great. The logic of whoever thought that system up, and that's what I mean is like the gameplay, it kind of hits a wall that unfortunately, is a natural progression of how you experience those types of games. Whereas when you're a creative mind and you're an imaginative mind and you're inside a world like Skyrim, stacking, all the, cheese wheels on, and making a giant cheese wheel fort, that's something that you can do. And that's pretty hilarious. And it's also really, really funny. To certain people. Other people, it's like, hey, I can stack a giant pile of dead bodies, or I can there's all kinds of things that you can do in those kinds of games that you can't do in others. So
but
when it comes to
the reason you can do those kinds of things is because they have a sophisticated physics engine.
Yes,
that's making. It's making so many calculations per second just to track the angles and positions and sizes of everything in your vicinity in the game world. Everything that's loaded has to be tracked by the CPU, and then it has to detect collisions, and that is no small thing. Detecting if it are two objects colliding, and there are ways that they've come up with to optimize that, but I know just from some of the 2D game development that I've tinkered with, there is so much that goes into just a simple two-dimensional physics simulation, let alone, I can't even imagine, like, what a big, sophisticated 3D engine has to do. Like, kudos to the people who were able to develop those kinds of things. But along that kind of, along a similar line of thought, we have Google teaming up with a company called Improbable. At first, when I read this headline, I thought it meant something different. Google, an improbable partner, to create massive online game worlds. I was like,
well,
who's the improbable partner?
Ask.
Like, who's the partner? Is it like I don't know, like some oil company or something? Like, who are they teaming up with? No, the company's called Improbable. So, and what they're doing is they're teaming up to create a platform that will enable massive, like, humongous, bigger than anything, you know, that's been conceived of thus far, game worlds to exist in the cloud and have the processing power to basically do these massive simulations that can be used as game worlds. And so this has the potential for allowing many, many more players and many, many more things happening in a simulated gaming environment than has been possible up until now. So
I'm really excited to see where this engine goes. The physics in this engine is really, really amazing, and the concept behind it is brilliant. And I think it has some real solid, like, concepts and direction of where it can evolve to. So I'm really excited for this, and this is the kind of technology that I think we will see moving forward, because we're kind of at the point where, you know, graphics can only get just a little bit more better at this point on the two-dimensional kind of, like, you know, playing it on a screen thing. Now in VR and in full dives, if we were to get that technology, obviously there's a huge, you know, gap that we have to jump through yet. So with this tool, we see an engine that's going to be able to do so much more for where I think gaming it naturally needs to go. It naturally needs to go in a direction where, you know, the worlds get bigger, the worlds get more amazing, more awesome, so that every day you can find things that, you know, nobody else has seen before, and you can experience things that are, you know, become more and more unique to you and your friends. And that's where the magic happens as far as, like, making a great game.
And it can, and so this is obviously geared towards online games, MMOs, that kind of thing. But it allows the potential also for many more people to be connected to the same server, and a lot more to be going on in that server at a time. And so I wonder if they'll even start drawing on that technology for single player titles, like outsource some of the processing power to the cloud to allow for much more sophisticated simulations. That would be interesting.
Yeah, and it'll be amazing to see where that whole system of being able to make it on the cloud and have it processed on a mega computer like that, like mega. It's not even a mega computer. It's a mega network of mega computers. Which is
that's
cool.
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
Many computers, servers hooked up together. Okay, I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah. It's magic. That's magic. I'll just go the Philly D route here. I don't know how it works. It's magic.
Yeah. No, that's always the way it's going to be. We don't know how it is. It's magic. Therefore, it's magic.
What was Strongbad's definition of technology? It was like the word technology means magic. It basically means anything that's really cool that you don't know how it works. That was his definition of technology. And I love that a Homestar Runner has sort of hasn't entirely faded out, but they're still producing a few cartoons every year. I love that. It hasn't gone away completely.
I kind of hope that they get a resurgence at some point, because it really is a cool thing that I think they could kind of market into a new direction. This is unfortunately what happens with a lot of our favorite things, is like with llamas and hats and this kind of stuff, is either the fan base gets a little tired or the creators get a little tired. And that's not really faulted to, hindsight is of course 2020. And so you can never fault somebody for like, well, yeah, I should have done this. But there are some things where you're like, oh, damn, you really should have done this. So,
well, the creators of that cartoon, though, of Homestar Runner, they've gone on to other things. Like they're not just kind of like
things.
They're working in TV and stuff now. But
the same with the creators from the Guild. And a lot of the actors in that, they've moved on to like a lot better stuff now too. So it's just a natural progression, and especially when it comes to really good writers, they are really hard to find. So they kind of move into new areas, and it's awesome. It's a good thing. So
well, and sometimes there comes a natural point where it's like, okay, this thing, this enterprise or franchise or whatever has run its course, so rather than stretch it out as far as it can go and let it become tired and bland, the creators move on to something else. I don't think that's always a bad thing.
We can't stress enough that there can only be so many Simpsons. The Simpsons have been around for years, and I'm sure they're going to keep on going for years. My goodness, The Simpsons have been around for so long.
Well, and same with...
For years, they were talking about, oh, yeah, no, this is going to be the final season, or, next season will be the final season. And then they realized, well, why don't we just keep making it until there's absolutely nothing more to make? So that's a good thing, because, there's a lot of old records that still haven't even been broken.
Mm-hmm. Well, The Simpsons, one of the reasons why it stays relevant and fresh is, and some people will argue with that, but I actually haven't watched it in a few years, but...
Neither have I, too much.
But, okay, well, let's look at another example. South Park. It's so topical, and it literally takes on, whatever happened this past week, because they're making the new show this past week. I was blown away when I found out that, the week that the show airs, they've written and animated that episode, like, within the 7 days prior to when that episode aired. It blows me away. But, anyway.
I feel, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I kind of feel that they kind of wrote themselves into a corner with this whole member berries thing. I don't know where they're going with that. I was thinking that they were going to go in one direction, and then nothing happened, and I was like, okay, well.
But the thing with a show like that is it's not difficult to write yourself back out of that corner, because it's a cartoon. Nobody cares. Like, the most bizarre stuff happens on South Park. They could be... they could wake up, have a character wake up at the end of the season and be like, oh, it was all a dream, and no one will care. Unlike with a show that's more realistic.
Well, they did have that with Kenny. Kenny died in a season, and then he just miraculously comes back, and everyone's like, oh yeah, totally. And then they built off of that later on in the series, which I love Kenny's story. I cannot wait for the Fractured Butthole. I think it's going to be really, really awesome. I really do like Kenny's story, and he's going to be a central figure in this one. So yeah, that's going to be awesome.
So what else has been going on? Let's see. If you're an Overwatch fan, they're doing holiday events and things, and some new holiday skins. If you want to see Tracer as in a cute little green elf outfit, now's your chance. Now's your chance.
Tracer makes a great alpha. I gotta say, she makes a great alpha. I think that's a brilliant thing.
No word on how her butt looks in those tights, but
I was reading another article today about how, like, why is it that the butt pose is so popular amongst cosplayers? And I'm like, well, because you told people that they couldn't have it. That's the only reason.
Therefore,
therefore people must have it, and this is what we see here. And it is beyond me as to why they didn't realize. We're going to talk about this more in our year-end video, but seriously, like somebody should have told them. You know that when you tell somebody you can't have something, or when somebody tells you can't have something, and then they just kind of like put it off to the side, but it's still within. You gotta have it. You gotta have it. It's just,
becomes all they want.
That's human nature for you. And not everybody is capable of diverting from regular human nature. So it's hilarious.
Well, this is why, that Star Wars game that had been fully developed, and then Disney shelved it when they bought LucasArts. What was it called again? It was like about the bounty hunters. Something like the 3 crap, I can't remember. I knew nothing about it, but the fact that Disney shelved it because they didn't think it would be appropriate. I want to play that game now. Like, it's in my top 5 games that I want to play, and we'll likely never get the chance unless somebody leaks it. Sombra's Christmas outfit looks really cool, by the way. Just looking at a picture here. I don't really play Overwatch, but if I were to pick it up and start playing it today, I would be Sombra just because of her awesome Christmas outfit.
So that game was called Star Wars 1313.
Right. I knew it was something like that. I knew it was something.
It was a very it was a fairly brutal game. It was fairly like. The storyline was pretty dark. The characters were, not necessarily something that you want your 9-year-old kid to hang around with, which is hilarious to me because the whole story about Darth Vader is not a family-friendly story. At its core, he murdered a bunch of children. So I don't really get how people are, like, oh, we shouldn't have a series on a bounty hunter, and then Rogue One comes out and it's it's supposedly much more along the lines of 1313 writing instead of the main genre writing. But even the main genre writing, I mean, you had a son murder his father in. Spoiler alert! In this last movie, if someone has not seen Force Awakens yet and has managed to completely avoid that spoiler,
well, we applaud you. I mean, you're not going to get our applause though because you're obviously living in a commune somewhere that has no internet access. So you probably don't even know what Star Wars is. But anyway, it's... But still, we got another...
Right.
We get these comments every now and then on the best ending video for Fallout 4 that we did. It was like over a year ago now. Holy crap. So much positive feedback on that. But every now and then, hey assholes, please don't put spoilers in the titles of your videos. Like, the game is a year old, buddy. Like, and this doesn't even deal with the central storyline of the game. Like, what?
No, the only thing in the title is the name of the 3 factions, and apparently that was totally broke the immersion for him because he knew the name of 3 of the groups. He went into it thinking apparently that the Brotherhood didn't exist in this game. I don't know how you can get away with that looking at the trailers or really picking up or knowing anything about the series. So it's or why you'd be looking for anything with the ending
Yeah.
You know,
Did you?
before you've played it. Just kind of weird. So, anyways.
A few other interesting things in the news here this week. So, game publisher Blizzard is getting into book publishing for its IP, including some previously published titles and a World of Warcraft adult coloring book. Now, these adult coloring books, this is...
A coloring book?
Coloring book, yeah. You can get a WoW coloring book.
Interesting.
Now, when they say adult coloring book, that doesn't mean like X-rated. That just means these adult coloring books are a thing that has...
You don't know the WoW community very well, then. Blizzard's...
I'm talking about stuff that's officially licensed by Blizzard, and published by Blizzard, not like... Yes,
all
I know.
I'm saying is that Blizzard's had a number of scrapes with the more seedier side of the internet, and I don't actually remember them coming out ahead on any of them. So,
Well, anyway, anyway, that's just interesting. These adult coloring books are a thing now. It's apparently very therapeutic for some people to sit and color, and they'll get together and do it in groups. And interesting. But anyway, that's just kind of a side thing I wanted to mention. But here's some interesting stuff. So there's a new law coming in China that is going to force game makers to publicly publish the odds of the item drops, of random item drops that you get.
Nice. Finally, I really hope that this gets translated over to here, because this was irritating me the other day. It's like, I had a friend, we were playing a mobile game, and he spent like $300 or whatever trying to get this one thing. And he like a lot of money. And he finally contacted the company. It was like, what gives? Like, I rolled this so many times, and the way that your advertising stated it, you heavily implied that it was very likely. And they mistakenly told him that there was only one of those that could hit the server group. So only one person would get this thing. After that, you don't actually get the chance to get it. It's an impossibility to get it. And he was able to take that email, forward it over to a Google rep, and they said, yeah, that's false advertising. And they gave him all of his money back, and they fined the game creator too. So this is something that I have been waiting for a long time, because if you're going for something, you have the right to know what your statistical odds of it are. So if they're like, hey, spend $30 or $50 and you'll get a chance at this, and it turns out that that's a 0.000000000 repeating 30 times percentage chance to get it, but they're using that as the main selling point, when it's pretty much an impossibility for you to get it unless you were to spend literally millions and millions of dollars on it, like somebody did recently. Let's talk about that in a minute. But you're not going to get the opportunity to get it, period. And those things are incredibly dishonest, incredibly it's cheap advertising, it's dirty advertising. I am not a fan of it at all.
I suppose it makes sense, because it is like playing the lottery, right?
It is.
And there are rules about that. They have to put all of this fine print, and here are your odds of winning something. Here's your odds of winning a big prize. And I'm sure nobody reads it. Well, somebody probably does read it. But
the majority of gamers aren't going to really care, because they don't really pay attention to this stuff in general. But there's a large group of gamers who really do care. I want to know, where is my money going to be the most profitable for me in this experience? If I am playing a free-to-play game, and it has some microtransactions, I'm not against spending $5 to $10 if the game is good and it's something that I get a great experience out of. But if it's like, hey, spend $100 on this, this $99 package here, and you have a chance of winning this, and it turns out that you don't have a chance of winning that, I mean, you have a chance, but it's like, it's like shooting a rocket to Mars. It's like 1 in a million, or even worse odds. That's not something that I would even remotely consider spending my money on, and I think people deserve to know when they're looking at those kinds of odds to go, oh wow, look, that's really ridiculous, and then that'll help to encourage the companies to create a more balanced cash op system, because these mobile games with their little like freemium stuff, a lot of them are cash cows, and they rake in a lot of money based off of not very accurate data. So that's not good. But I'm really glad. When I heard this, I was really happy. I was really excited to hear that they're moving in that direction, and I really hope that other countries do that too, because, like I said, people have a right to know what their money is giving them, and if it's I always get so annoyed by that McDonald's monopoly thing. I hate McDonald's. I don't eat there ever, but every year the monopoly thing comes around and they're like, oh, 1 in 5 chance or 1 in 3 chance of winning something, and I'm like, okay, well, fine, I'll grab some drinks or whatever and play the odds, see what I get in this silly little restaurant thing, and I'll get like 10 cards or whatever during a week. Not one of them, not a single one. I'll get 20 maybe, not a single one of them. I'm like, I wonder if these odds really are this, or if there's been some tweaking, or maybe I'm just really, really unlucky. Probably probably the latter. So
but while we're on the topic of gaming laws, South Korea is apparently going to be making it illegal to cheat in online games. So the creation and distribution of hacks for online multiplayer games that offer you some kind of advantage are apparently they're going to be against the law. They're actually going to be criminalized in South Korea. Have you heard about this?
Yes, and I'm really, again, very happy about this, because people hacking or modding or tweaking a game, we're not talking about good mods in Skyrim and Fallout 4. We're talking about mods that are designed for you to be able to headshot everybody, from an unreachable point. And those gamers are...
So you're talking about, cheating in an online match. It's like creating something that helps you cheat.
Yeah. And the people who create those tools absolutely should be shut down. So on top of that news, we've got one last story, which is hilarious. A guy embezzles a couple of million, like $4 million from his company and his boss. And then he goes ahead and he spends over $1 million on app purchases inside a game to get that winning edge that he just couldn't get in other scenarios, I guess.
It was that game, what was it called? The one with Kate Upton in the ads.
I think I read in a little bit more into it. That wasn't the only game. He spent on several different games. So he was just this guy is not a good gamer. He's not a skilled player if he's spending over $1 million trying to get an advantage in these games.
That actually brings up an interesting contrast with our previous story.
When that Star Wars game first came out for the mobile with the mobile device, I placed in the top 20 positions in the first week, and that was a great thrill. That was fun. I didn't spend any money on that. Because it was all about positioning and your characters and lining them up and getting the right ones and countering certain builds and stuff like that, and that was great. And then I got burnt out on it right away. And now I'm playing another game where I placed in the top like 0.2%. I think I'm like number 65 or whatever on the global server, and that's a great thrill. That's a great experience. But I'm sitting there looking at it, and there's people who are that top like 50 people, they're all like I'm running the numbers. I'm calculating. Okay, like there's a limit on energy, and how much energy you can buy is calculated on how much money you spent. You have to hit this certain VIP level to unlock this many purchases in order to push your characters past this certain level by this certain date, meaning that they spent an average of $4,500. Wow. Like, top 50 people spending $4,500 to get into that top 50 position. That's insane.
What I find funny about these pay-to-win scenarios with these, freemium games or whatever it's called, you build your own hack to cheat in an online game, and that's considered scummy. You pay to buy one from the developer. That's okay.
It's still scummy. I have no respect for.
But I
have zero respect for both developers and gamers who build in a pay-to-win scenario. I'm not against somebody getting a slight edge if they're bad at the game. Like, certain groups of people who, they don't have the reaction speed or critical thinking necessary to get up there and see certain content. I'm not against them being barred from seeing that certain content, but for them to be able to basically just pay their way to a winning position, that's like, it doesn't sit well. It doesn't sit well with me.
Well, I don't know. Contact my my online chess provider and see if I can toss him a few bucks and get an extra queen every now and then.
Just at the start of the game. Why do you have two queens? Oh, yeah. Microtransactions, buddy. So anyways, thank you for joining us for this weekly podcast. Please like and subscribe. I am one of your hosts, Cybsidian, and
I'm the other guy. We'll talk to you next week.